Okay, so this video is going to be covering Chapter 4 of Improving Vocabulary Skills. If you get your book out, you can open up to page 20. And again, I recommend that you, as you listen to this, you mark the answers in your book so that you have them as reference. All right, so here's our words. Let's go ahead and read through these and take a guess at parts of speech. The first one is calamity. No real clue there. Sort of the the ITY is a clue. Comprehensive, IVE is a clue. Conventional, the AL at the end is a clue. Flagrant, fluctuate, the sound at the end, the 8 sound is a clue. Persevere, no real clue there. Ponder, there's no real clue there. Even though it ends in ER, that's not going to be a clue for us. Rehabilitate, so that sound at the end, 8. Turmoil, no real clue there. And then venture, and again, no real clue. So our first word here is calamity. And this is a noun. So remember, these ITY words tend to be nouns. The survivors of the earthquake slowly rebuilt their homes and lives after the calamity. Our neighbor's house burned down one night in May. Ever since that calamity, some of the children on our street have been afraid to go to bed. So what a calamity is a tragedy or a disaster. On page 21, calamity is an event bringing great loss and misery. So the word tragedy is actually appropriate. Normally, a calamity is talking about a physical event that happened or took place. That as a result of that event, there was a lot of damage, and that damage caused a lot of sorrow, a lot of sadness. A lot of loss for a number of people. So if we look at the first example there, we see it was an earthquake, right? We consider that to be a calamity because it's going to destroy a lot of homes and cause a lot of loss. In the second one, it was a fire that burned down the house. So again, that's a physical thing that's causing a lot of sadness and loss. So our next one here is comprehensive, and this ends in IVE, and those words tend to be adjectives. So the article on sightseeing in Charleston was not comprehensive. It failed to mention many points of interest in that wonderful city. The company's comprehensive insurance plan covers most health services, including hospitals, doctors, and dentists. So what comprehensive means is it means complete. When we describe something as comprehensive, normally we're talking about an idea or an article or a newspaper. Comprehensive means that it covers all parts of an issue or a thing. So in the first example, we're saying the article on Charleston was not comprehensive. The article is about sightseeing or going to visit this city, Charleston. If it was comprehensive, it would cover every single thing that you could see in Charleston. So in that sense, it was complete. It covers all parts of the issues. With insurance, if an insurance program is comprehensive, it means it covers all sorts of reasons that you might have to visit a doctor. So in this case, the examples it gives are like hospitals, different doctors and dentists, but other things that would be included in comprehensive. Health insurance would also be, if you needed to get glasses, if you needed medication, if you needed a rehabilitation, like if you got injured. So comprehensive means that it covers all parts of something. If we take our class for an example, ESL 42 is not a comprehensive class. we don't cover everything that we could about reading. So, for example, we don't really, even though we're reading a novel, you're not going to be learning about themes and literary analysis and things like this. Um, it's actually probably impossible for any one class to be comprehensive about any one subject. But on page 21, comprehensive is number 3. Including all or much is comprehensive. So our next word here is conventional, and this one ends in al, and it's an adjective, and that's a clue for us. Two conventional Valentine's Day gifts are roses and chocolates. Jorge wanted to propose to Ramona in the conventional manner, so in the middle of the restaurant, he got down on one knee and asked, "Will you marry me?" So what conventional means is usual. Another way to think of the word conventional is traditional. Um, Conventional comes from the word convention, which has more than one meaning, but in this meaning, what it means is the way that something is normally done. So, for example, in the first example, the Valentine's gifts, the sort of traditional gifts are roses and chocolates. You could give something else, but those are sort of the standard gifts. In the United States and maybe in some of your countries as well, the traditional way for a man to propose to a woman, or now in this case for a man to propose to a man because the laws have changed, is to get down on one knee, and give the ring and ask the woman to marry him. Sorry. Um, Conventionals number 10 on page 21. It means customary or ordinary. So whatever is normal or ordinary for that specific culture. Our next word is flagrant, and this one is an adjective. The use of campaign funds for the congressman's private business was a flagrant violation of the law. In flagrant disregard of his parents' stated wishes, Art wore a t-shirt and jeans to their dinner party. What flagrant means here is obvious. Now, we have to be really careful. When you're studying, don't just study the word obvious as the synonym, because it actually doesn't capture all of the meaning of it. On page 21, flagrant is number 1, shockingly obvious or outrageous. What flagrant means is that it's an action that is obviously in violation of rules or standards, that it's very clear to whoever sees it that this is a very clear violation of the rules. There's no gray areas. For those of you who watch sports, I'll give you 2 examples. In basketball, there's different types of fouls. There's a regular foul and there's a flagrant foul. A flagrant foul is a very serious foul that's very clear. So if one player hits another player in the head, that's considered to be a flagrant foul, because it's so obvious. In soccer, a flagrant foul normally is going to be, you're going to get a red card for that. You could say that some yellow cards are also flagrant fouls, but really, by and large, when a referee in a soccer game gives out a red card, everybody agrees that what the person has done is a foul, as long as it's not the second yellow card. But that's a different issue. Um, like if you're in the goalie box and you're not the goalie and you stop the ball with your hand from going in to the goal, that's a flagrant foul, and you get sent off for that. So when you're studying this word, be careful about just treating it as obvious, because it doesn't just mean obvious. It means obviously wrong. Okay? So our next word here is fluctuate. Fluctuate ends in that 8 sounds, which makes it a verb. My weight used to fluctuate between 150 and 190 pounds. Now I'm steady at, pardon me, at 170 pounds. Desert temperatures can fluctuate by as much as 50 degrees between daytime and nighttime. So fluctuate means to vary. Really, fluctuate has the meaning of going up and down. That's the way that it's varying. And so when we talk about fluctuating, we're normally talking about something that's associated with number or amount. So in the first example, it talks about our weight, which is something that we can measure. So we're saying he's saying it used to fluctuate between 150 and 190. So it'd go up sometimes and it'd come down sometimes. In the second example, we're talking about temperatures, right? They go up sometimes, they go down sometimes. If any of you guys invest money in the stock market, we also will talk about that fluctuating. Sometimes the stocks are up, they're very expensive, and sometimes they're down, they're very cheap. On page 21, fluctuates number 8, to vary irregularly, to go up and down or back and forth. It means, so fluctuate is not a regular rhythm, right? It's not, so for example, with the weight, it doesn't mean on Tuesday I'm 150, on Wednesday I'm 160, on Friday I'm 170 or whatever. It's not a predictable pattern, but it also has this irregular aspect to it as well. Our next one is persevere, and this one is a verb. I know you're tired, Jack said, but we've got to persevere and get to the camp before the storm hits. It was not easy to attend English class while working at 2 jobs, but Nina persevered until she could speak English well. Persevere means to keep going, to continue on. And it also has the additional meaning of, if we look on page 21, it's number 5, to continue with effort or plan despite difficulties. So persevere means that you keep on going even though things are hard. Persevere means you continue trying to do something even when it gets difficult. So in the first example, these people are hiking, and so the one person's tired, so it's difficult to continue hiking. But Jack says they need to persevere, to continue going, even though it's difficult. A lot of you guys will relate to the second example about studying English while you're working 2 jobs. That's a difficult thing to do, but you should persevere because it's worth it in the long run. Okay, so persevere means to keep going even when things get hard. Even when things get hard. Our next word here is ponder, and this one's a verb. Too often we don't take time to ponder the possible consequences of our actions. Over the years, Mr. Madigan rarely took time to ponder the meaning of life. Since his heart attack, however, he's thought a lot about what is important to him. So, to ponder means to think about. So, ponder has an additional meaning of not just to think about, but to think about something deeply. Often to try and figure out the meaning of something, or the possible results of something. On page 21, it's number 9, to carefully consider, to think deeply about something. So in the first example, this is certainly true of probably most of us when we were younger, is that we don't ponder the possible consequences of our actions. There's an expression in English that says, look before you leap. And what that means is you should ponder what's going to happen before you take an action. Pardon me. In the second example, pondering the meaning of life, thinking about why am I here? What am I doing in this life? What's the meaning of life? Those sort of thoughts, we would treat them as pondering, because they're deep. They're what we call deep thoughts. So moving on here, next one here is rehabilitate. And again, this one ends in that ate sound, making it a verb. Most prisons take little effort to rehabilitate inmates so that they can lead productive, wholesome lives after their release. My grandfather learned to walk, write, and speak again in a program that rehabilitates stroke victims. Rehabilitate means to return to normal life. If we look at this this is a prefix, and the prefix re means again. So rehabilitate means to make somebody normal again, to make them able again. So rehabilitate has to come after something bad has happened or something negative has happened. So in the first example, it's talking about prison. So the bad thing that the person has done is they've chosen to commit a crime, right? And here it's saying that the prisons don't try to make the people better again, make them like they were before they started committing crimes. In the second example, you're going to often hear rehabilitation talking about when someone gets injured. So in this example, it says a stroke, and a stroke is a brain injury that I believe, not a medical professional, but happens when you have a blood clot in your brain, and oftentimes what happens is that the person loses the ability to use, maybe one side of their body. They may also lose a lot of the normal abilities that they had, like in this case, writing and speaking again. And they sort of have to be taught over again how to do that. Rehabilitation also, those of you guys who play sports, if you have an injury, before you can start playing again, you have to rehabilitate, because once you say you hurt your leg or your foot, you're not going to be able to go, once it's healed, you're not going to be able to play exactly like you used to. You'll need to, to slowly to make something better. Rehabilitate is number 4 on page 21, to restore to normal life through therapy or education. So in this case, therapy, would be the help that you would need if you had injured yourself. Education would be like in the first case, for people who don't know how to behave properly or were never taught. Our next word here is turmoil, and this one's a noun. Without a teacher, the 6th grade class was in turmoil until the principal entered the room and the students quickly came to order. After the turmoil of crying babies, active children, and trying to feed 120 people, I'm glad that when our family reunions end. Turmoil means disorder. So turmoil, it means disorder in the sense of like that there's so many things going on, and it's not organized at all. So turmoil is often associated with large groups of people, right? So in the first example, if you think about this, we've all, I would assume, been in classes where there's been turmoil, where basically, either the teacher doesn't have control of the class, or maybe, like in this case, the teacher leaves the class, and then it's like a madhouse in the class. Everybody's just running around doing whatever they want. There's no organization, and there's just, people all over the place. In the second example, I'm not from a huge family like this, but I'm sure some of you are, and when your whole family gets together to do something, it's all sort of crazy because these people want to do that, those people want to do that. You got to make sure that everybody gets food. Where are all the kids? It's just sort of a craziness. So turmoil is number 6 on page 21, complete confusion or uproar. And our last word here is venture, and this one's a verb. It can also be a noun, but in this case we're going to be using it as a verb. I'll venture going on any ride in this amusement park except the Twister, said Nick. I'll risk getting sick to my stomach, but I won't risk my life. At tomorrow's staff meeting, my older sister said, I will venture to say what I really think and cross my fingers that I don't get fired. So what venture means is to dare. Really what it means is to take a risk. If we think about this, a word that we're all familiar with is the word adventure, right? And an adventure is an exciting thing, but an exciting thing to do. But it's an exciting thing because there's some risk involved, because maybe there's some danger involved. On page 21, venture is number 2, to take the risk or dare. So when you venture to do something, oftentimes it's, you're trying to do something, you're doing something that's new that you haven't ever done before, and you don't really know what the results will be. So in the first example, right, this person is willing to try to go on a lot of different rides. Except one specific one. He'll take the risk in certain ones, but he won't take it in that one. In the second example, the person is like taking a risk. I'm gonna say what I think, and I don't know what's gonna happen. Maybe I'll get fired. I hope I don't. But venture means that you're daring to do something without really knowing what's going to happen. All of you guys ventured at some point. You decided to leave your country and come here, or maybe you didn't decide; someone else decided. But there was no way for you to know how things would turn out when you came here. Hopefully, they're turning out positively. But my guess is that the way things have turned out, in some ways are different than what you expected, or at least that's my experience of going to a new country or moving to a new country. Okay, great. So I encourage you to do the online activities. Make sure to bring your book to class, and we'll review any questions that you have. All right, take care. Bye.